Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. Today we'll start off with verse 166 of Surah Al-Nisa, and incidentally the surah will end also today on verse 176, and we hope to cover it today in today's session. We have been seeing that the last part of Surah Nisa is basically it consists of 4 answers given to 4 questions that were there and they were ripe in the minds of people. A question by the hypocrites, question by the Muslims, and some explanatory questions regarding some initial concepts that were discussed in the surah. And this is something which is very similar to its counterpart surah, which is Surah Maida. Inshallah, when we will read it, we will see how that surah too has a structural similarity, in which just as some questions have been discussed here, in that surah too, right at the end, there are some questions whose answers have been discussed, and this clearly shows how the 2 surahs are structurally connected as well. So we start off with verse 166. It says, لكن الله يشهد بما أنزل إليك أنزله بعلمه والملائكة يشهدون وكفى بالله شهيدا. Let them deny it if they want to, but God bears witness that whatever He has revealed to you, He has revealed it with His knowledge, and His angels also bear witness, and sufficient is God alone as witness. So the implication, of course, here is that in no way should the Prophet think that the revelation that he is receiving is from anyone else or anyone other than God. In fact, the nature of its revelation is such that prophets of God, when they receive it, they know it's not something which is inspired by their own soul or maybe something from Satan. The nature itself is something that makes it very evident to them that it is from a divine origin. And that is precisely what has been stated here, that God has revealed it with His knowledge, and the angels bear witness to it, and God also bears witness to it, that the prophets of God should not be in any doubt, and they are in no doubt when they receive a divine communication. إن الذين كفروا وصدوا عن سبيل الله قد ضلوا ضلالا بعيدا. Those who have disbelieved and debarred others from the path of God have strayed far into error. So of course the fact that people who have disbelieved, referring to them who have taken up the fact that they will oppose the new message come what may, and not only that but stop other people from accepting it as well. So the Quran says قد ضلوا ضلالا بعيدا, that they have gone far astray, they have been deviant in their thoughts, and they're unlikely to come back. إن الذين كفروا وظلموا لم يكن الله ليغفر لهم ولا ليهديهم طريقا. Those who have disbelieved and in this manner have been unjust to their souls, God will neither forgive them nor will He guide them to any path to any other path actually. So again, the same repetition, if you can see verse 167 and verse 168, both start with the same introduction, Inna lazina kafaru and Inna lazina kafaru. So the first part said that people who disbelieve and stop others from the straight path or following the straight path, they have gone far astray. And here it is said that those who have disbelieved and in this manner have been unjust to their own soul, lam yakunillahu liyaghfira lahum wala liyahdihum tariqa. God will neither forgive them, lam yakunillahu liyaghfira lahum wala liyahdihum tariqa, nor will He guide to any other path. So which means that such people are bound to wander in their disbelief, and they'll be misguided because of their own penchant towards disbelief. إلا طريق جهنم خالدين فيها أبدا وكان ذلك على الله يسيرا. They shall abide in it forever, and this is very easy for God. So basically, وَلَا لِيَهْدِيَهُمْ طَرِيقًا إِلَّا طَرِيقَ جَهَنَّمْ is one sentence distributed in the other verse. So He will not guide them to any other path than the path of hell. So لَا يَهْدِيَهُمْ طَرِيقًا إِلَّا طَرِيقَ جَهَنَّمْ. So that is the complete sentence, and as you can see here, that at times within the Quran, sentences are even divided between 2 verses, and this accounts for basically the rhythm and rhyme that is found in these Quranic verses. Otherwise, of course, normally the way we would have written a sentence would be that we would have completed it without letting it go into the next part of the verse. But because the Quran is not a book of prose, the way we understand prose. It's a book in which, to some extent, we have poetic, I can say yes, poetic license as well, and to some extent, the elements of poetic diction. And similarly, it's also prosaic in some of its features. But it's very difficult to classify the Quran as a whole. We can just say that it's something that has the features of both prose and poetry in it. And the poetry or the poetic feature in it that is the most prominent and stands out is the one that it has a certain rhyme and rhythm, and every verse actually is governed by that rhyme and rhythm. And if there is any sentence that has to be completed and the rhyme is finished, then it will necessarily end on that rhyme regarding that verse. And now if you can see verse 167 and verse 168, because the rhyme that is being continuing is shahida, ba'ida. So now liyahdiyahum tariqa had to be verse ending, and very next to it is yasira. So had this not been the case, of course, illa tariqa jahannam, which is part of the previous sentence, would not have gone over into the next verse. So this is just a way of explaining how important the rhyming structure of the Quran is. And if you can just see the four verse endings right before you, verse 166, 167, 168 and 169, shahida, ba'ida, tariqa, yasira. So all these have the same rhythm and to some extent the rhyme also. And then it says, illa tariqa jahannam khalidina fiha abada wa kana zalika ala Allahi yasira. They shall abide in it forever, and this is very easy for God. So people who deliberately deny the truth, especially when it relates to a prophet of God, it is something which God says that they will not be let off in any way. They will not be let off in any way, and they will be serving a very huge sentence, a sentence in which they are going to stay eternally in hellfire. And it is this that has to be feared at all costs, that unfortunately people who are going to in any way deliberately deny a truth, especially if that truth is related to the advent of a prophet of God and denying him, then the Quran says that eternal hell is destined for such people. So, illa tariqa jahannam khalidina fiha abada wa kana zalika ala Allahi yasira. So it's not difficult at all for the Almighty to consign people for this obduracy, for this stubbornness, and for this total defiance, to consign them to hellfire forever. And that is why it is said that it is something which is very easy for God. Ya ayyuhan nas qad ja'akum ar-rasulu bil haqqi min rabbikum fa aminu khayran lakum wa in takfuru fa inna lillahi ma fis samawati wal ard wa kana Allahu aliman hakima. People, this messenger has come to you with the truth from your Lord, so profess faith in him. Your benefit lies in this, and if you become adamant on disbelief, then remember that you would not harm God in any way, because whatever is in the heavens and the earth all belongs to God. And وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا. He will reward each person for his deeds, but only at the time he has prescribed for it, because God is all-knowing and wise. Of course, the important thing here is that people who have become adamant on disbelief, they should not think that in any way they can harm God. A new messenger has come to them, and he has come in all truth. And as the Quran says, Aminu khayran lakum, that if they profess faith in him, then it's going to be something that is going to be good for them, that is going to be better for them. And of course, Ya ayyuhan nas here it seems it is referring, although it's very general in its connotation, but as we will move along, you will see that here An-Nas actually refers to the Nazarenes or to the Christians. So one thing that you might need to know here is that basically the Quran calls the followers of Jesus to be Nazarenes, and this was the name that was given to the followers of Jesus by Peter, who was the righteous disciple, the rightful disciple and the righteous disciple of Jesus. However, it was later on when Paul changed this name, they thought that this name is derogatory, and they said that the proper name for the followers of Jesus is Christians. So remember, the word Christian is never mentioned anywhere in the Quran, which shows that basically the Nazarenes, who were the followers of Saint Peter, were the ones who were the righteous amongst the Christians, and or amongst the followers of Jesus, and they were the ones who actually later on professed faith when the last prophet or the last messenger arrived. Christian or Christianity or the word Christendom, these are words that came to be used much later, and they are basically an innovation of St. Paul himself, and it is to him that this name originates from, and it owes its origination to him. So now it is said, Ya Ahlal Kitab la taghlu fi dinikum wa la taqulu ala Allahi illa al-haq. So now you can clearly see, although the word Ahlul Kitab is used, but as the verse will unfold, it clearly is referring to the Christians because they were indulging in religious extremism. So Ghulf actually relates to something in which you go to an extreme, and it actually means to enhance the status and weight of some aspect or some part of religion far beyond what is the optimum or the required status of that thing. So you enhance that status, exaggerate in that status. So, O people of the book, do not transgress the bounds of your religion. La taghlu fi dinikum wa la taqulu ala Allahi illa al-haq, and speak nothing but the truth about God. Innamal Masihu Isa ibn Maryam Rasulullahi wa kalimatuh. In reality, the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, was no more than God's messenger and his word, which he had cast into Mary. Ruhum minhu fa aminu billahi wa rasulihi wa la taqulu salasa, and was a spirit from him which he had blown into Mary. So profess faith in God and his messenger, and do not make God three. So wala taqulu salasa, again this is something which is referring to the creed of Christianity, the creed of Trinity, which is found in Christianity, and this creed too is an innovation that was presented by St. Paul for the first time. We know that the followers of Peter, they never had anything to do with Trinity. It was St. Paul, and the way he interpreted certain verses of the Bible and twisted their meaning and made them at times swallow or encapsulate this meaning that as far as God is concerned, he is a God who has three heads or three Godheads, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, as they say. So it should not in any way be something that we should regard to be a teaching of Jesus himself, nor of the Bible. So it's something that originated from St. Paul. So as the verse says that the Messiah was no more than God's messenger and his word, which he had cast into Mary. So of course, because the way the miraculous birth of Jesus took place was that it was like a spirit blown into Mary from God himself, that Christians took advantage of, or you can say the followers of Paul actually took advantage of the fact that because of this miraculous birth, or because of the fact that the spirit was blown by God, they regarded God to be the father of Jesus, and they took advantage of this very concept. So the Quran, on the contrary, says, فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرُسُلِهِ, you profess faith in God and his messengers, and وَلَا تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثَ, do not say that God is three, and do not make God three actually. And intahu khairal lakum, abstain, this alone is better for you. Innamallahu ilahum wahid, God is but one God. Subhanahu an yakuna lahu walad, he is above and beyond having offspring. Lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard wa kafa billahi wakila, all that is in the heavens and the earth belongs to him, and he alone is sufficient to oversee their affairs. Now once again, the fact that Christianity or Christians later on became contaminated with the fact that they would regard the mother of Jesus, Mary of course, to be the mother of God, and they would regard Jesus himself to be the Son of God. That is something which is not, of course, the teaching in any way of Jesus himself. In fact, as we shall see in the next surah, near the end of that surah, in which there is a dialogue between God and Jesus that's going to take place on the Day of Judgment, in which God will actually address Jesus and ask him that, did you teach your followers to regard yourself as God and your mother to be the mother of God? And Jesus would reply, not at all. I mean, as long as I was amongst them, I never taught this doctrine to them. And kunta anta raqiba alayhim, and once I passed away, you were the one who was guarding them, you were the one who was their guardian, so I have nothing to do with that. So clearly this acquittal And this statement of disowning this whole issue of Trinity, the concept of Trinity and the doctrine of Trinity, is something that will take place from the tongue of Jesus as well. So, لَن يَسْتَنْكِفَ الْمَسِيحُ أَن يَكُونَ عَبْدًا لِلَّهِ وَلَا الْمَلَائِكَةُ الْمُقَرَّبُونَ. The Messiah shall certainly never feel ashamed to be a servant of God, nor shall the angels who are close to him ever feel ashamed. If someone is ashamed to serve God, which actually refers to the next part of the verse, which says, وَمَن يَسْتَنْكِفْ عَنْ عِبَادَتِهِ وَمَن يَسْتَنْكِفْ عَنْ عِبَادَتِهِ وَيَسْتَكْبِرْ فَسَيَحْشُرُ إِلَيْهِ جَمِيعًا, which means that if someone is ashamed to serve God and is arrogant, then soon he shall surround all to gather them before his presence. فَسَيَحْشُرُهُمْ إِلَيْهِ جَمِيعًا. So again, you can see that whatever a person can do, of course, he can have no say against God. Whatever he may like, whatever excuses he may concoct, ultimately it is God who is going to surround them from all sides. And one thing that, again, you might also need to know is that because Jesus has also been called that he is a kalima of God, and actually this refers to the fact that the kalima itself is the word kun, which means when God says kun, and that matter is destined to take place, then of course the thing that is going to have its shape, form, can be called a kalima, and that is exactly what is the case with Jesus. So he was a spirit from him and was blown the way it was blown in Adam. So just as Adam, when he was created and a spirit was blown into him, as has been declared in the Quran, in a very similar way it happened in the case of Jesus. So if Adam as a result did not become the Son of God, how could Jesus have attained this status? So we have to understand that as far as the Quran is concerned, it is giving a counter argument. If Adam did not become a son of God because he, of course, the spirit was blown into him, so how could Jesus had become or has come to become the Son of God or God himself if the Spirit of God is blown into him? So we have to understand that the words La taghlu fi dinikum that we just passed by early in the earlier verse are something that have to be understood in a very precise and in a very accurate way. So one of the primary reasons for being inflicted with this ghuluv means this exaggeration of status of someone. So one of the primary reasons for that is in fact arrogance. If people who accept and acknowledge a thing or a person are unaware of the bounds and limits, or do not have the tendency to follow these bounds and limits, then they are bent upon and desirous of proving the superiority of that thing or person on all the rest. This is a very common thing. So then they begin elevating and exalting that person to the extent that they are able to satisfy their own arrogance by making sure that no other entity can pose a threat or challenge this superiority. So the Christians were confronted with this trial. When they accepted Jesus, they could not confine themselves to accepting him as a creature and messenger of God. They reckoned that there were many creatures and messengers of God. If Jesus too was a creature and messenger, then what distinction did he have from the rest? This manifest arrogance, we can say, which was found in this argumentation, pushed them to go to this unreasonable length to making Jesus to be the Son of God. So we have to understand that this is a way in which nations at times are afflicted with. It's a great trial that they are afflicted with, and if this is not taken care of, then we will find that a lot of things, they go out of proportion and they are blown out of proportion, as is the case here. And the word zalla or zallu, which means to go astray, as we have just seen in our previous verse, in the lazina kafaru wa zallu, which means that they actually they were misguided, or they wanted to become misguided because they had chosen this wrong path. So this has become a label for the Christians, and precisely that is why we find the word dhaleen in Surah Fatiha that we study or recite in every prayer to refer to the Christians and the way they had gone astray. So now, as is the case, that just as the deviants are mentioned, now the Quran, according to its very common style, mentions the opposite party or the opposite group, which are the persons or the people who are are steadfast and they are treading the righteous path. So they say, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَيُوَفِّيهِمْ أُجُورَهُمْ وَيَزِيدُهُم مِّن فَضْلِهِ وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ اسْتَنكَفُوا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا فَيُعَذِّبُهُمْ عَذَابًا أَلِيمًا وَلَا يَجِدُونَ لَهُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَلِيًّا وَلَا نَصِيرًا. So, then those who have professed faith and have done righteous deeds, He shall fully give them their reward and also give them more out of His grace. And those who have felt ashamed of His servitude and have showed arrogance, He will inflict on them a painful punishment, and they will find none to support or help them against God. So clearly you can see these two parallel verses explaining how these two parallel or opposite outcomes would result. So people who have professed faith, God says, فَيُوَفِّيهِمْ أُجُورَهُمْ وَيَزِيدُهُم مِّن فَضْلِهِ, that God will give them their full reward. In fact, out of His own grace, He will give them more. However, people who felt ashamed of His servitude, and instead of serving Him, they started to serve other people. So, and of course, as a result, they showed disdain, they showed arrogance. Then, فَيُعَذِّبُهُمْ عَذَابًا أَلِيمًا, God is going to give them and inflict them a very painful punishment. And وَلَا يَجِدُونَ لَهُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَلِيًّا وَلَا نَصِيرًا, and they will not find to support anyone to support them against God. يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ قَدْ جَاءَكُمْ بُرْهَانٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ نُورًا مُبِينًا. So now once again the same pattern is repeated, and of course the word burhan is something that refers to the Quran, because the Quran is the clear argument or the clear evidence, as the word burhan itself says. And Nura Mubina, of course, also is the Quran itself. So, Ya ayyuhan nas qad ja'akum burhanum min rabbikum. People, a clear evidence has come to you from your Lord, and we have sent down to you a light which clearly explains. Anzalna ilaykum Nura Mubina, which clearly explains everything. So, that is why we find the Quran being addressed by both these attributes. The first of these words, which explains the intellectual and the argumentative nature of the Quran, because it says burhan. So burhan actually refers to a conclusive truth or conclusive reasoning. So the nature of Quranic reasoning is conclusive, and so that is why it is called burhan, because its reasoning and arguments are so powerful and so profound that no one can oppose them. And the word Nura Mubina, so Nura Mubina means a light that is that's spreading all over, a light that clearly explains everything. So this word Nura Mubina actually explains the practical side, and which means that it guides human beings in all affairs of life in such a way that they that this brings them into light from the darkness that they might be wandering in. So as far as the Quran is concerned, it is the light, it is the burhan, it is the argumentation that we can clearly see. So now we come to the last question, which is actually stated in the last verse, and this last question actually related to the explanation of the word kalala. And we know that the what kalala means, that someone who does not have parents or children is called a kalala. And we know from the answer to this fourth question arose because the shares of the brothers and sisters in the absence of children came under question. So kalala are relatives, which we can call cousins. So it was said that if a person does not have relatives, it does not have children, so should the brothers and sisters be naturally given the position of heirs to them? There was a hint of this found in verses 11 and 12, because the shares in the absence of the children of the parents would return to their original, and so it was thought that, well, in the absence of the children, the same shares would be given to the siblings, to the brothers and sisters, and this is precisely what is explained here. So a hint of this answer, as I said, was found in verses 11 and 12, but when people could not understand it, they posed this question, and the Quran answered it with full clarity. So it says, Qulillahu yuftikum fil kalala. So again, you can see that yastaftunaka, the question is mentioned in a very brief way. You don't even have the words of the question. We get to know from the answer that Qulillahu yuftikum fil kalala, that the question is actually about kalala. And here, of course, it refers to the Kalala relatives who actually are the brothers and sisters. So the Quran then replies and says, people ask your verdict, tell them, يستفتونك قل الله يفتيكم في الكلالة إن امرؤ هلك ليس له ولد وله أخت فلها نصف ما ترك. People ask your verdict. Tell them God gives his verdict to you about Kalala relatives. If a person dies childless and he has a sister only, then she shall inherit a half of what he leaves. And if the sister dies childless, then her brother shall be her heir. And if there are two sisters, so the Quranic words are وهو يرثها إن لم يكن لها ولد فإن كانت اثنتين فلهما الثلثان مما ترك وإن كانوا إخوة رجالا ونساء فللذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين يبين الله لكم أن تضلوا والله بكل شيء عليم. Which means that if a person, I'm just going to translate from the beginning, if a person dies childless and he has a sister only, then she shall inherit a half of what he leaves. And if the sister dies childless, then her brother shall be her heir. And if there are two sisters, then they shall inherit 2/3 of what he leaves behind. And if there are many brothers and sisters, then the share of the male shall be that of two females. God explains to you so that you err not, and God has knowledge of all things. So clearly we can see that it is exactly in the same manner in which these shares have been distributed in the case of only brothers and sisters in the absence of children. So the way the shares of the children are distributed, it is exactly the same way in which the shares of the brothers and sisters are going to be distributed in the absence of children. So just as in the case of a single daughter, she would have received half. So now if there is only one sister, so you can see that she'll receive half. And if there were only sons, for example, then they would have got all the distribution distributed amongst themselves. So that is what the Quran says, that if there is only a brother, then he shall receive the complete inheritance. And if there are two sisters, so they shall receive one half. They shall receive 2/3, just as had there been two daughters. And if they are brothers and sisters, so just as brothers and sisters, if they were present in that case, each brother would receive twice that of a sister. So in this case, if there are only brothers and, instead of sons and daughters, if they are only brothers and sisters, so just as in the case of the presence of both sons and daughters, each son would receive twice the amount of the daughter. In a similar way, in the absence of children, if they are only brothers and sisters of the deceased, then they shall receive the same in the same proportion, such that the brother will receive twice the sister. So this is the exact reflection. It's like a transposition of the shares of the children into the brothers and sisters. But the condition is that if a person dies childless, which means that he does not have children, so now his Kalala relatives would be his brothers and sisters, his siblings, and now they shall in all case inherit in the same proportion as was the case with the children of the deceased. So this is the question that had arisen in the minds of people, that what will happen if a person dies childless, and what if the Kalala relatives are there in the form of brothers and sisters. So with this we come to an end to this fourth question, and with that also we come to an end to this surah as well, which finishes off with this answer to the fourth question. And we will now, of course, attempt its idiomatic and literal translation once you have the time to raise questions on the on the passage that we have just studied.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our first question comes from Imran. Please go ahead.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shehzad. Something you mentioned, I'll have a different question at the end of, when we're asking non-related question about the thematic tafsir, but you mentioned that the prophets know that the revelation they're getting are from God, and of course not from Satan. But we see that when Musa alayhi salam got his first revelation, he was afraid, perplexed, of course, when he threw the asa on the floor, his staff, it changed into snake. Prophet ﷺ, when Jibreel alayhi salam came to him, also was quite, I guess, shaken. So we're just trying to understand the first interaction they have, like before they, of course, are given the revelation, they don't know they're going to become prophet, right? But then when the initial interaction there, they are somewhat surprised or astonished, so to speak. Thank you.
So actually, the way it has been mentioned in the Quran, it tells us that yes, initially it is something, because something has happened unintroduced, something that they would have never expected. So there is an element of surprise, but then that surprise is immediately gives way to belief and to the fact that the divine has spoken to them. So in no way or at no point of time do they think that it is the voice of their own soul maybe, or their own nafs, as the Quran says, or maybe Satan. So it's like a surprise that is best expressed. And after that, of course, as soon as they receive this assurance, and in the case of Moses also, we know that when the Almighty thought that Moses has been taken aback, so he said, La takhaf, don't be afraid, and there is no point of being afraid in the presence of God. So that is what is mentioned in a certain surah. So I think it's more of like a surprise that you get out of being chosen for something, because they are not expecting that they be chosen. It's not a thing that they earn, it's something that they are chosen for by the Almighty. So other than that, they get to know this because they are in line of receiving this revelation, in the sense that they know that prophets of God have come in the past and they have spoken on behalf of God. So they know at least this, that there have been prophets before them, but they would never expect that they are going to be someone like them. So that element of surprise is very natural, but nothing more.
And you know, these days, of course, a lot of people and the Western scholars, they do question that, oh, you know, they had hallucinations or something like that. Of course, we don't believe that, because we believe the scripture and the the rest of the revelation thereafter. But how do you answer those people or critics who are trying to dissuade people, you know, that it
By the product itself, you see, it's something that humans cannot produce. If someone is hallucinating, it cannot, a hallucinatory person cannot produce something which you can find to be such a miraculous speech, and that too by someone who is illiterate. So remember, the Prophet was not literate, and for 40 years he was amongst his people. And it is precisely this what he had said, and it has been cited in Surah Hud in the Quran. It says, "Faqad labistu fikum umara," that I have spent a whole lifetime amongst you, and if I'm suddenly saying something, I could not have practiced it or produced it out of practice, because I'm not even literate. It has suddenly come out of me, and I am surprised myself. So you see, this is something which is itself a proof of someone being nominated as a prophet of God.
Thank you, Jazakumullah khairan. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Muhammad Asif, you're up next. Please go ahead.
This is regarding the verse 166. This verse serves as an assurance to the Prophet about the veracity of the revelations from God. And in this way, this is something personal and internal to the experiences of the Prophet himself.
Right.
And obviously, this cannot be an evidence of the veracity of the Wahi being revealed for the direct addresses of the Prophet and the people who follow. Then what can be the logic of this verse in the context that in the previous verses, historical evidences were cited to the people of the book? So I just want to then in what context? Because these are the experiences that are quite personal to the prophets.
Correct. So you see, it's just a question of telling them. You see, in the verses which were prior to this verse, it says, "Inna awhayna ilayka kama awhayna ila Nuhin wa nabiyyina min ba'di." So there was a whole list of messengers that was given from Moses, starting from Abraham, and even before that, from Noah and all the way up to the final messengers. And it was said that there are certain messengers to whom God has, about whom God has related their account before you, and there are others about whom you have no clue about, because God did not choose to reveal them to you, and most probably that was because the Arabs were not conversant with those prophets of God. So remember, only those prophets have been mentioned in the Quran about whom the Arabs were known, and they knew, and it was not something new to them. So after that, this verse comes that if they are denying you because they have denied earlier as well, it should not be any cause of concern for you. As far as you are concerned, you should rest assured that what you have received is absolutely truth, and let them do what they want to. So you see, this is a very important and a very subtle area of the Quran, in which you see the messengers of God, they have a living relationship with God, and that living relationship is beautifully expressed here. And it's like a double assurance. The prophets of God don't need that assurance, but it's like a double assurance sounded to them, that if these people have kept on denying and have denied the previous prophets, you need not worry, because if they have denied, it's up to them. As far as you are concerned, you are absolutely on the right path. I am guiding you. I am sending you this revelation. So, I mean, these are words of assurance for someone who's already assured. So, they actually supplement that assurance, and they also show that prophets of God, they have a human side as well. And for that human side, that assurance is also very important.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Ammar Rasul, please go ahead.
Dr.
Walaikum.
Dr. My question was, I have two questions, but I'll begin with the first one regarding the verses. The first one is that Quran takes so much time and puts in so much effort to explain the follies of the Christian faith and how belief in one God is essential. And yet at the same time, in many places, it praises Christians as good people. It creates a space for the Christians where it says that if you do good, then you believe in God in the hereafter, and you have a good afterlife guaranteed. So how do we reconcile with that?
So you see, you have to understand that there were two types of groups present amongst the Christians. There was a righteous group who were the followers of Peter, Simon Peter, and there was a group that was followers of Saint Paul, who had distorted Christianity, and they were the ones who actually, both had a say, and both had infiltrated into Arabia many hundred years ago, very earlier on, and both these groups were present when Prophet Muhammad arrived on the scene. So mostly the followers of Peter, they professed faith, and if it is about these followers that the Quran praises them a lot and tells them that they are the ones who even stand to pray at night, they do Amr bil Maruf, and they take lead in doing good deeds. So therefore, in any way, don't think that all the people of the book are all the same. So remember the words that the Quran uses at one instance is Laysu Sawad. All of them are not equal. Some of them are going to profess faith, others are going to deny you. And the people who actually denied, and they were in large numbers, they outnumbered the other group, they were mostly followers of Saint Paul. And so they did not accept in any way. And that is how it came to be.
So, Dr. Sahab, are you saying that when the Quran says that Muslim men can marry Christian women, then the Quran is not talking about the Christian women of today, who obviously would believe in the Trinity? Or when the Quran says that such and such groups of believers, the Sabians, the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews, have a pathway to heaven, if they fulfill these conditions, then the Quran is not talking about present day Christians who obviously believe in the Trinity?
Of course, that's what I've been telling all along. The Quran is not referring to present day Christians in the sense that the way those Christians have been condemned, rebuked, and even punished. So today's Christians, although they have the same beliefs, but the Quran actually gives us this leverage, or gives them this lenience, that there is always a chance for them to not come near the truth for various reasons. Of course, the prophets of God, they no longer come, and it is their presence which communicates the truth in its ultimate form. Today, they could have a lot of excuses, rightful excuses, legitimate excuses that could maybe take them further away from Islam. Foremost being how Muslims behave themselves. Similarly, they could have very genuine questions which have been left unanswered. So today's Christians cannot in any way be considered analogous to the Christians of the times of the Prophet, because about them the Quran says that they could not have had any excuse to deny the message, because everything was made clear to them. And that is precisely what is the meaning of Itmamul Hujjah, that the argument is communicated in such an explicit and ultimate way that except for stubbornness and obduracy, they don't have any means to, or any grounds to deny it. But today's Christians, I mean, they might still hold the same beliefs, but the rebuke that is found in the Quran is meant for those Christians and not for these Christians, simply because, as I said, that for them there was no excuse left because a prophet of God was delivering the message to them. Today, in the absence of a prophet of God, there can be a lot of grounds and chances for Christians to remain on what they think to be the truth and stay away from Islam.
All right, sir. Thank you. Is it possible to ask another question on the same verses?
Could you please wait a bit more and raise your hand
Yes.
again?
Okay.
Thank you very much. The next question asks, what is the ruling of distribution of a person who dies and has an adopted son, wife, and brothers? Is the adopted son excluded from inheritance?
So, if a person dies such that he has siblings, he does not have a biological son, he just has an adopted son. So, what will happen is that he needs to actually make a will in favor of his adopted son, whatever amount that he'd like to give him, or if it's a daughter, to her. And once that amount is given, then the remaining amount shall be distributed amongst his brothers and sisters if they are the only ones present as heirs.
Thank you very much. Salman Aziz, please go ahead.
So my question is regarding the name of the Jesus, peace be upon him. In the Quran, the name is mentioned as Masih and Isa both. My question is also in the context that once Ghamidi Sahib said that generally the Christians don't like to be called as Isai, they like to be called as Masihi. So could you please tell what is the name actually of the Jesus and what are the meanings and what was the reason that the Christians don't like to be called as Isai?
So, I mean, that is the same thing as we have just said, that Messiah, as you all know, or is actually from the word Masah. And this was an old tradition of the Israelite prophets that the going prophet, he would baptize the head of the coming prophet by anointing the forehead with oil or with water, signifying that now he has given the charge to the coming prophet. So this is what that was called, Masah. And of course, from that very word came the word Masih, and baptism is something very similar. But about Jesus, he was called as Al-Masih, the Messiah, I mean the ultimate Messiah. And it seems that because, of course, there was no prophet to baptize him, and that baptism, in fact, was given by him to God, by God himself. So that is why he's called Al-Masih. And so whether the Christians, what we know about the Christians is that they don't want to be called Nazarenes, and they thought that it's something derogatory for them. And they thought that the word Christian is something which is very, I would say, laudatory for them, something which is praiseworthy. And they gave up that name of Nazarene, and we know probably that this took place in the time of St. Paul, who actually used this word much more frequently. So you will see that the whole Quran is without the mention of the word Christian. I mean, this is a much later introduction. I mean, of course, the word Christian had already been adopted by the followers of Paul, but it was never adopted by the Quran. So the Quran referred to them as in the original name, which is Nasara actually. And Nasara, of course, is referring to the fact that Jesus himself was called the Masih of Nasir. So Nazareth, of course, is the place where he was born. And from that, he came to be called as, I mean, his followers came to be called as Nasara. So the word Nazareth basically is a place in which he was born. And from that, they came to be called as Nasara. But this is something that the followers of Paul regarded to be derogatory. And they gave up this name. And they said that the proper name for us is Christ or Christian. And that's how it came to be developed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, if a parent wishes to distribute property equally to son and daughter through their will, is that allowed? I mean, you mentioned that writing a will is allowed, but is that seen as a sin in the eyes of Islam?
No, so if your son and daughter, I mean, they're going to get a share on as it is, because they are sons and daughters and they have familial relationship. But if a son or a daughter has done something, some extraordinary service, or has been left behind in his own life for some reason, because of any need, then you can give something more to them on the basis of a will. So you cannot make a will in favor of your heirs on the basis of their familial relationship, which of course is something which God has already given or already made, and that is twice to the brother and twice as much to the brothers and the sisters. So that is on the base of your family relationship with the deceased. That is one basis. There are two other bases of making a will, and one of them is this extraordinary service done or some need. That is also something. So on the basis of some service or some need, you can make a will in favor of your heirs as well, like your own children as well, but not on the basis of any other thing that we call as maybe favoritism, something in which you are trying to bring that boy or girl some special, you're treating him in a special way without any service or without any need, because God says that for that God himself has made a will, and that will is that a son will receive twice a daughter's share. So that will has been made by God, which is the will on the basis of which the familial ties are established. But because there are two other bases also, like need and service, besides familial ties, so in that arena we still have the liberty to make a will. But for that we must be we must be clear in our conscience that there is a justification in which we are if we are granting a share to a daughter or son, then it would be either because he or she has done some extraordinary service, or because either of the two have done, they are in some dire need. Other than that, if that is not the case, then you cannot make a will in favor of your children, or for that matter, any of your heirs.
Thank you very much for the clarification, Dr. Saleem. Dr. Muhammad Asif, please go ahead. Dr. Muhammad Asif.
Yes. This question relates to the verse 175, and that verse says, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَاعْتَصَمُوا بِهِ فَسَيُدْخِلُهُمْ فِي رَحْمَةٍ مِّنْهُ. This obviously refers to the life in the hereafter and the good happenings. وَفَضْلٍ وَيَهْدِيهِمْ إِلَيْهِ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا. So what is that hidayat that is mentioned in these verses, that Allah will bestow them with hidayat ila siratam mustaqima in the hereafter? What is
so the word? So actually this is a very special usage of the Quran, in which Hada Yahdi does not simply mean that some guidance is given in the way that you are given some statements or some directives. It's like that direction itself in which you are led straight to God, to the path of God. That is also used, that is also one of the connotations of the words Hada Yahdi. So Yahdihim ilahi would mean that they are guided to the path of God. They themselves are guided intuitively towards the path of God. That's what is implied here. It's not some physical guidance.
But this is something happening in the hereafter, which is mentioned in these verses.
That's correct.
So in this context, what would be the nature of that hidayat?
Of course, this is something of we cannot exactly say. It seems to be something of the nature of mutashabihat, but it actually means that God is going to show them the straight path that leads to Him, which means that this is a area in which they will be intuitively, like without any formality, as if instantaneously or impulsively, they'll go straight towards God. It's like an expression of the fact that as soon as you go there, it's like your ride is going to be very easy, and it's like a straight drive towards God that you will experience. It's difficult to express in words, but the thing is that what is being said here is that such is the nature of this reward, because you see, it has been appended to a previous part which says that فَسَيُدْخِلُهُمْ فِي رَحْمَةٍ مِّنْهُ. He shall admit them into the shades of His mercy and His grace. Remember, this is going to happen in the hereafter, and show them the straight path that leads to Him, which means that now it is something that they are going to be able to easily access, and they are going to land into paradise like an impulsive thing, like as if it was something which is automatic. So this is basically an expression of landing in paradise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ammar Rasul, please go ahead.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum once again, Dr. Sahab. Dr. Sahab, my question was about this division of inheritance amongst sisters and brothers, which is similar to how it is divided amongst
Children.
Sons and daughters. So my understanding always was that the main reason for that this difference between genders as far as division is concerned is because God puts the responsibility, the financial responsibility, on men as far as looking after families is concerned. I wanted to ask, first of all, is there another reason, or is that the only reason?
No, this is not the reason at all. I mean, you don't need another reason. The reason is actually a different one. This is something that people have inferred. So many jurists think that the reason that boys have been given twice the share of the girls is that they are an earning hand, and of course that is why. They are not given. Their parents are more dependent on them as a result. So that is actually not what the Quran has stated at all. The Quran says, "Aba'ukum wa abna'ukum la tadruna ayyuhum aqrabu lakum naf'a," which means that it is basically the benefit of a prospective heir for the deceased which governs this distribution. The more that heir is potentially beneficial for the deceased, the more his share. And what exactly would be that? The Quran says, you cannot know this. Aba'ukum wa abna'ukum la tadruna. You just cannot know in what proportion you can give that. All that I can tell you, God says, is that the proportion is that the more benefit you can draw from an heir, the more will be his share or her share. But what would be that? God says, I'm going to tell you. And if you look at a family structure which is based such that, of course, men occupy or husbands occupy the head of the family, then you can clearly see that the benefit of a daughter is transferred to her husband once she gets married, and it is divided between her husband and her parents. But this is not the case with the sons. Once they get married, because the parents can still live with them, they still can be dependent on them in a normal way because they are the heads of the family. So their benefit does not get transferred. It stays where it is. Whereas a daughter, she moves to a new house, and now she is to attend to a husband, and of course, whenever she gets the time, she has to attend to her own parents. So this is the normal setup. Obviously, there are differences. There could be differences in which, for example, a daughter does not get married. She stays with the parents, or she has a husband who stays with her. So these are exceptions, and we can treat them separately. But the Quran, in a general way, says that the reason for these difference of shares, not just between the daughter and the son, but in other cases as well, between sisters and brothers, between father and mother, in all such instances, God says the reason for this difference is ayyuhum aqrabu lakum naf'a, that which of you are closest in benefit to the deceased. So that governs the distribution, and I think this is something that has to be really paid attention to.
Okay, so thank you. So just from this point onwards, my question was that just as you have mentioned that there might be exceptions. If the sons are leading their own lives, and yet there is a daughter who's really looking after her parents, and she doesn't even get married because of that. Then how does the Islamic law make space for her?
So yes. So no, I mean, she'll be getting half from the familial will which God has made. Other than that, I just said that if she has made some extraordinary service, she's performed very well as being a very close person to the parents and looked after them, then they can make a will in her favor. They can give her much more. I mean, the half that she'll receive. Let me explain this once again. You see, look at there's a person who's deceased. He's going to die. There are three ways in which he gets connected with his heirs. One, which is the familial instance, on the basis of your relationship. On that count, God says, I have made that will. And what is that? That the daughter shall receive half of that. So that is just one instance in which a person's will can be made. But in this case, God says that will has been taken away from you. The right of that will has been taken away from you. I have made that will. But you still have two other grounds of making that will. One, if there is some extraordinary service done to you, and 2, if one of your heirs is in some extraordinary need. So in that case, I have still given you the option to write a will in their favor. So consider this example, that if a girl, she never married because the boys had maybe married and gone away, and she chose to remain with her parents because they were alone. So now she'll get half that share in any case, and the sons will get twice of that. But other than that, a will can be made in her favor to grant her as much as the parent deems to be appropriate. And once that amount is given, then the 2:1 proportion shall be distributed. So first that will has to be discharged, that is to be given to her if she has done some extraordinary service, any will. So in such a case, it will be incumbent upon the parents to make some will for them. Okay, so I am going to start the literal and idiomatic translation of the passage that we have just discussed, so that we are able to finish off this surah as we enter into the month of Ramadan. So the verse from which we are going to start is from verse 166. It says, Lakin Allahu yashhadu. So lakin is but. Allah, God, yashhadu, bears witness, bima, on, anzala ilayka, He has revealed to you. So God bears witness to what He has revealed to you, and anzalahu, that He has revealed it, bi ilmihi, with His knowledge. So what is meant is that God bears witness, and what does He bear witness? That whatever He has revealed to you, bima anzala ilayka, anzalahu bi ilmihi, He has revealed that thing with His knowledge. So anzala means to send down or to reveal. Who refers to Him? Bi ilmihi, with His knowledge. Wa, and al-malaika, the angels, yashhadun, bear witness. So just as God bears witness, it says wal malaikatu yashhadun, the angels also bear witness. Wa, and kafa is sufficient. Billah, God, shahida, as witness, and sufficient is God as witness. Yeah. Inna allazina kafaru, inna, indeed, allazina, those who, kafaru, disbelieved, wa, and saddu, stopped, an sabilillahi, from the passage of God or from the path of God. Qad, indeed, zallu zalalam ba'ida, they went very far astray. So zallu zalala is basically one expression, and ba'ida means far. So a zallu zalala means someone who's gone very deviantly astray. So qad zallu zalalam ba'ida would mean that those who have disbelieved and have stopped other people from the path of God, they have gone very far astray. Inna, indeed, allazina, those who, kafaru, disbelieved, wa, and zalamu, were unjust, lam, not, yakunillah, is God, liyaghfira lahum, going to forgive them, wa, and la, not, liyahdiyahum, going to guide them, tariqa, to a place, illa, to a path, illa, except, tariqa jahannam, the path of hell, khalidina, forever, fiha, in it, abada, eternally. So those who have disbelieved and have been unjust, God is not going to forgive them. Lam yakunillahu liyaghfira lahum. God is not going to forgive them. Wala liyahdiyahum, nor is He going to guide them to any path except the path of hell. They'll live in it forever. And the word abada and khalidin, they are synonymous, and of course they have been placed as in this instance the way they have been juxtaposed with, on either side of fiha, just to create more stress. So essentially khalidina and abada have the same meaning. So except for the path of hell, they shall stay in it forever. Wa, and kana is zalika, that, ala, on, Allah, God, yasira, easy. And this is very easy for God, which means that if God is going to lead a person astray because of his own misgivings and misdoings, then this is not at all difficult for God. He can do it very easily. Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, qad ja'akum, indeed has come to you, ja'akum, kum, to you, ar-rasul, the messenger, bil haqq, with the truth, mir rabbikum, from your Lord. So, O people, a messenger has come to you with the truth from your Lord. فَآمِنُوا خَيْرًا لَكُمْ. So profess faith in Him, it will be better for you. So profess faith in Him, it will be better for you. خَيْرًا لَكُمْ, it will be better for you. Wa, and, in, if, takfuru, you deny, فَإِنَّ, then indeed, lillahi, to God, ma, that, fi, in, as-samawat, the heavens, wa, and al-ard, the earth. So if you deny, then whatever is in the heavens and the earth belongs to God, which means that you're not going to harm God. Everything belongs to Him. So if you're going to harm anyone, it's going to be your own self. Wa kana Allahu aliman hakima. Wa, and kana is Allah, God, alima, knowledgeable, hakima, wise, and God is knowledgeable and wise. Ya ahlal kitab, O people of the book, la, don't, taghlu, become extreme, fi dinikum, in your religion. Do not become extreme in your religion. Do not transgress the bounds of your religion. Wa, and la, not. Taqulu, say, alallahi, about God, illa, except, haq, the truth. So do not say anything about God except that which is the truth. Innamal masihu, indeed the Messiah, Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, son of God, Rasulullah, is God's messenger. Wa, and kalimatuhu, and his word. So indeed Jesus, indeed Messiah, Jesus, son of God, is God's messenger and his word. Alqaha, that he has blown, ila, towards, Maryam, Mary. So it's a spirit or a kalima that he has blown into Mary or towards Mary. Wa ruhum minhu, and a spirit, minhu, from himself. So he is a spirit from God. Fa, therefore, aminu, profess faith, billahi, in God, wa, and rusulihi, and his messengers. So profess faith in God and his messengers. Wa, and la, not, taqulu, say, salasa, three, and do not say three, which means do not make God three, referring to Trinity. Intahu, intahu means abstain. Khairul lakum, it will be better for you. Khair, better. Lakum, for you. If you abstain, it will be better for you. Innama, indeed. Allah, God. Ilahun, deity. Wahid, one. Indeed, God is one God, or indeed God is one deity. Subhanahu. Subhana means he is glorious and he is exalted above. An yakuna lahu walad. An, that, yakuna is lahu, for him, walad, a child. So he is exalted such that he could have any child, such that any child could be ascribed to him. An yakuna lahu walad. Lahu, for him. Ma fis samawat, whatever is in the samawat, whatever is in the heavens. Wa ma fil ard, and in the earth. So to him belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth. Wa kafa billahi wakila, and God is sufficient as wakil, as someone who is their advocate. So sufficient is God as their advocate. Lan, certainly not. Yastankif. Yastankif means to feel ashamed. Al-Masih, the Messiah. So the Messiah certainly not feels ashamed. An yakuna, that he, abdalillah, be a servant of God. So he never will feel ashamed that he is a servant of God. Walal malaikatu, wa, and la, not al malaika, the angels. And the malaika and the angels will also not feel any shame that they are servants of God. Al-malaika are who? Al-muqarrabun, who are close to God. Wa, and man, he, yastankif. So yastankif means a person who feels ashamed, an ibadatihi, to worship God. So he who feels ashamed to worship God, wa yastakbir, and also shows haughtiness, also shows conceitedness or arrogance. فَسَيَحْشُرُهُمْ إِلَيْهِ جَمِيعًا. فَسَيَحْشُرُهُمْ, which means indeed he shall be led towards him. Indeed they shall be led towards him. Jamia, all of them. So all of them will be led towards him. Fa, therefore, amma, as for, allazina, those who, amanu, professed faith. So therefore, as for those who professed faith, wa, and amilus salihat, and did righteous deeds, fayuwaffihim. So therefore, give them in full, ujurahum, their reward. So ujur, of course, is the plural of ajr. So God is going to give them their reward in full. Wa, and yaziduhum, increase them, min, from, fazlihi, his own grace, which means that he is going to give them his reward in full and also give more from his own grace. Wa, and ammallazina stankafu, as for those Istankafa means who have felt ashamed. So as for those who feel ashamed, wastakbaru, and they also show arrogance, fayu'azzibuhum, so God is going to give them or punish them, azaban alima, a grave punishment. So God is going to punish them with in a grave way. Wa, and la, not, yajiduna, they will find, lahum, for themselves, min dunillahi, against God, waliyan, any helper, wa, and la, not, nasira. So that's also something that's a helper. So waliyan can be translated as an advocate or someone who is a supporter. So what we can idiomatically say is that such people will not find for themselves against God any support or any help. Waliyan wala nasira, neither any support nor any help. Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, qad ja'akum, indeed has come to you, burhan, a clear evidence, a clear proof, mir rabbikum, from your Lord. So, O people, a clear proof has come from your Lord. Of course, we have discussed this, that the clear proof refers to the Quran. Wa, and anzalna, we have revealed, ilaykum, to you, nuram mubina, a light that explains, a light which is very clear. Of course, that is also referring to the Quran. Fa amma allazina amanu, fa, therefore, amma, as for, allazina, those who amanu, professed faith, billahi, in God, wa tasamu bihi, and held fast to him, fasayudkhiluhum, he will enter them, fi rahmatim minhu, into his shades that will be given by him, minhu, from him, wa fadl, and his grace. So as for those who profess faith in God and hold fast to God, God is going to admit them into his mercy and his grace. Wa yahdihim, and he will guide them, ilayhi, towards himself, ilayhi, wa yahdihim ilayhi, and he shall show them the straight path. And what is that path? Of course, that is Sirat al-Mustaqima, that the path that actually leads to him. وَيَهْدِيهِمْ إِلَيْهِ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا, he shall guide them towards a path that is the straight path. The path that is the straight path, or the path that leads to him. So يَهْدِيهِمْ إِلَيْهِ would be actually towards God. So يَهْدِيهِمْ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا, he will guide them, he will show them the straight path, or guide them to the straight path that actually leads to himself, which is God himself. يَسْتَفْتُونَكَ, they ask, of course, they ask for your verdict in the Kalala relatives. Qul, say, Allah, God, yuftikum, gives verdict, fil Kalala, regarding the Kalala relatives. And of course, here they refer to brothers and sisters. We know that in the absence of brothers and sisters, in the absence of children, brothers and sisters, they take their place. And this is something that has been mentioned earlier on in verses 11 and 12. And there is a hint of this answer, of course, that says that in the absence of children, the Kalala relatives would be their brothers and sisters. And this is something that was hinted in the case of verses 11 and 12. And verses 12, of course, verse 12 of Surah Nisa has already empowered a person to bequeath a part of his legacy in favor of Kalala relatives. And of course, these are uncles, aunts, cousins, brothers and sisters. Now there's a particular case which is mentioned here after the general directive, and that is what if a person does not have, he can have aunts and uncles, but he has brothers and sisters in the absence of his children. And then the Quran says that in the absence of their children, the wealth that he is going to bequeath is now going to go to the brothers and sisters. It's not going, because he does not have children. So now the brothers and sisters, they take the place of their children. And that is precisely what has been explained in this last verse. It says, in umru'un halaka, if imru'un, a person, halaka, dies, laysa lahu walad, such that he does not have a child. In other words, he dies childless. He does not have children. Walahu ukht, but he has a sister. Falaha, then for her, nisfu ma tarak, half of what he leaves behind. Wahuwa yarisuha, and if he has a brother, in other words, it would mean that her brother shall be her heir. Wahuwa yarisuha, in that case. So if the person dies childless and he has only a sister, then she shall receive a half of what he leaves behind, nisfu ma taraka, what he leaves behind. And if the sister dies childless, wahuwa yarasuha, which means that he will be his share, illam yakullaha walad, of course, which means that if he does not have children, then he will be the heir. Fa in kana tasnatain. So fa in kana tasnatain would mean that if they are fa, therefore in, if kanata are isnatain, two sisters, falahuma, then for both of them athuluthan, for both of them is 2/3 mimma taraka, of what he leaves behind. So if he has two sisters, then for both of them would be 2/3 of what he has left behind. Wa in, wa is and, in is if, kanu is ikhwatun, rijalan kathiran wa nisaa. Ikhwa means brothers and sisters. Rijalan wa nisaa would mean if there are many brothers and sisters. Faliz zakare, then liz zakare, for every male, mislu hazlil unsayen, is twice the share of a female. For every male, mislu is equal to haz, share, unsayen, two females, which means a brother or a brother will get twice the share of a sister. And then it says, yubayyinullahu lakum an tadillu. God explains to yubayyinu, explains, Allah, God, lakum, to you, an tadillu, lest you may go astray. So God explains so that you should not go astray. Wallahu, and Allah, God, bikulle, to everything, to every shay'in thing, alim, aware. So indeed God is aware of everything, and God is for everything aware. So this is the fourth question, of course, that was answered in the last question, that if they have kalala relatives in the form of brothers and sisters, then the person will not be allowed to make a will in favor of other kalala relatives like an aunt or uncle. It shall necessarily the inheritance will be distributed amongst his brothers and sisters who are his siblings. So with this we come to an end to this surah, which is the fourth surah of the Quran. And obviously we have some time left. If you have any questions, please raise them, inshallah, as I just said earlier on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. In regards to the sister getting half, if there is no one else and there's no will written, does the other half go to the state?
No, it doesn't go to the state. That's what I said. I mean, it would mean that you have ample amount to make a will from that other half that is left behind. So this is God's will, that the half should go to the sister. The other half which remains is now left to your discretion, and you can use that other half to make a will in anyone's favor. And if you don't use it, then it will go to the nearest male relative, and that's what's happened. It never goes to the state.
Thank you very much for the clarification. The next question asks, if a property is jointly between a couple, and if one passes away, would the property go through to the remaining spouse, or does it have to go through the will and property division rulings?
I mean, the thing is that a property is jointly owned by the husband and wife. Is that the question? So that would mean that 50% is owned by the wife and 50% is owned by the husband. And if let's suppose that the husband dies, so the 50% which the wife already has, that's going to remain intact because she's already the owner. Now the 50% that belong to the husband, that will be distributed among the heirs, and the wife is of course one of the heirs. So it will go to his parents, the parents of the husband, and of course to the children and to the wife. But the 50% that already belong to the wife, that shall be left untouched because she's already the owner.
Thank you very much. And then why does the wife get only 1/8 of her husband's assets?
So that is when they have children. Whenever there are children, the wife would get 1/8 of the husband's inheritance. In the absence of children, she'll get 1/4.
Thank you very much. Since we're in the last 10 minutes, we'll take some non-topic related questions. This one asks, how much religious knowledge is necessary for a common Muslim? Is it mandatory for every Muslim to become a religious scholar? If you could please answer in Urdu.
Yes. Okay, so इसका जवाब ये है कि ज़ाहिर है कि आपको कोई आलिम बनना तो किसी पे फ़र्ज़ नहीं है. इतना इल्म आपके पास होना चाहिए कि आप जो दीन की बुनियादी मालूमात हैं उनसे आप वाकिफ़ हों, कुरान मजीद से आपका शगफ़ हो, कुरान मजीद को आप समझ के पढ़ सकते हों, और अगर आपको अरबी नहीं आती तो कम से कम तर्जुमे से आप पढ़ सकते हो। तो दीन की जो बुनियादी मालूमात है वो आपके इल्म में होनी चाहिए, और उसके जो बुनियादी अहकाम हैं वो भी आपके इल्म में होने चाहिए, ताकि आप उनको सरअंजाम दे सकें।
Thank you very much. If you are without wudu, can you read Quran in Arabic?
Yes, we can. Whether in Arabic or non-Arabic, wudu is not a condition to pick up the Quran or to read it.
What about if you're in the state of janaba?
Even then, you can read the Quran.
Thank you
Even
very
then.
much. Imran, please go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Shehzad, if you can shed light on one thing is, if you get a chance at the end, I want to know what thematic tafsir is and how would that be different from what we're doing. But that's if you have time at the end. But I want to go back to the Jesus is referred to Kalimatullah wa Ruhullah in this surah, and why it's not used for other prophets. And I know you had touched on it that in before the Surah Ma'idah, where Allah says, إذ قال الله عيسى ابن مريم اذكروا نعمتي عليك وعلى والدتك إذ أيدتك بروح القدس. So over there, Allah is saying, I helped you with the Ruh al-Qudus, which is Jibreel. But that also is only referring to Jesus, because no other prophet, Quran says that he was helped with Ruh al-Qudus. So it's basically three questions together, like the Jesus is only the one who's addressed as Kalimatullah wa Ruhullah, and he's the only one who's been helped by Jibreel, so that's why him specifically. Thank you.
Actually, you have to understand that, Jesus is the only prophet who was born out of a miraculous birth without a father. And he was born from God's kalama of kun, that be, and he became. And the way he became was that God transferred his spirit into Mary's womb. And he was there. He was fertilized and in the form of a fetus in her womb. So that is what is mentioned by the Quran, that he was formed by God's kalima of kun. And the way that kalima of kun communicated itself or transferred was through spirit, as a spirit or a breath of God that was blown into Mary. So that is what the Quran says. Obviously, we cannot have an exact idea of how this happened, and it is from among the matters of mutashabihat. But a broad idea is given that it's not that God is the father of Jesus. God is someone who created Jesus in a miraculous way, and that is something that now relates to your second question as well. And that is, of course, that for so many, a very long period of time, almost 2,000 years, these Israel, or maybe 1,500 years, or at least more than 1,500 years. So the Israelites had continued to deny their prophets, and their time was now up, and they needed to be cautioned and prodded in a very drastic way. So Jesus was given some ultimate miracles. He was born from a miraculous birth, and he was able to raise the dead. This is something which only God can do. Imagine a person who is dead and Jesus coming to him and giving back him his life. So, and of course, there were several other miracles as well that we know from the Bible and from the Quran. So the reason was that, of course, that he was supposed to be the last of the Israelite prophets. And prior to him, there were so many other prophets. In fact, we know that Zacharias and John, they were actually killed by the Jews. And even before them, there were others to whom they never listened. And their history is a history of disobedience and defiance. So it was Jesus who was given this miraculous birth and these miracles so that they could be cautioned and jolted and prodded that now your time is up. Even if now you don't understand, when a prophet of God is standing before you and showing you his miracles, then of course there is no way out for you. And what was your third question?
So basically, the miracles were there and they were sufficient. Why does it say that I am helping you with Ruh al-Qudus?
Because, it's once again, because, these are not ordinary miracles. Raising from the dead is this is only, we haven't seen this happen except for God. Only God can give life. So this is the first ever instance in the history of prophets that we know that he worked this miracle. So that is why it has been shown that God helped him through Gabriel so that he could show these extraordinary miracles. So just to once again caution and prod the Israelites that they are facing an outstanding prophet of God. Never before such miracles have been worked by any prophet, and if even now they don't rise up from their slumber, then their time is up.
I see. Yeah, actually, there's the New Testament, or rather the Old Testament scholars say there were other prophets who were mentioned who also raised people from the dead. Of course, we don't have that in Quran. So basically, what Quran is saying that Jibreel alayhi salam was used to help Jesus with this, carry out these miracles. I see.
These outstanding miracles.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Shaban Ansari, and then we'll get back to chat questions.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम
वालेकुम
डॉक्टर
अस्सलाम।
साहब उम्रे के बारे में मुझे सवाल करना है कि अगर जैसे कोई रमज़ान में वहाँ जा रहा हो उम्रा करने के लिए और ईद के बाद उसे वापस आना हो तो वहाँ एक ही उम्रा होगा ना लेकिन वो लोग जो मस्जिद आयशा से बार बार एहराम बांध के उम्रा करने के लिए आते हैं तो उन्हीं का सवाल है कि क्या जितने उम्रे 10-20 उम्रे करें तो वो हर दफ़ा ख़वातीन में से खातून को जो है एक लट 1 इंच काटनी होगी
I mean, the proper way of doing Umrah is to do one Umrah in one journey. If you want to do another Umrah, then that would be that you go to some other city, like for example, you go to Medina maybe, or other part like Riyadh, and then come once again to do Umrah. So you just cannot do the same Umrah. I mean, it's not advisable. The Sahaba never did it. The Prophet never did it. They advised one Umrah per journey. If you would like to do more than one, then you must go out of that place to some other city and then come back so that you can now make wear the ihram afresh once again and then do your Umrah. This repeated practice of doing Umrah in one journey was never the practice of the companions of the Prophet.
तो लेकिन वो ये कहीं का होगा ना फतवा जो लोग मस्जिद आयशा से आते हैं
I'm not sure about that. For that you have to ask their local scholars, but I don't agree with this that I mean you do multiple Umrahs in the same journey. I mean, look at what the Quran has said. It has said that if you combine your Umrah with Hajj, then you should pay a penalty of sacrificing an animal, which clearly shows that you should not even combine Hajj with Umrah. You should go on separate journeys. So if this is what the Almighty wants, that you should go for Hajj and Umrah for in a separate journey, how can it be allowed that you do repeatedly the same Umrah, or I mean in the same journey several Umrahs? It has to be a different journey.
ठीक है डॉक्टर साहब दूसरा सवाल ये था कि दरूद शरीफ के बारे में जो ये रिवायत है कि दुआ का सारा हिस्सा बस दरूद शरीफ में ही लगा दो वही काफ़ी हो जाएगा वो मुझे समझ नहीं आती कि क्या ये
I mean, there is no such directive. This is something that people, I don't know where they have made this up. I mean, there is no such thing in the Quran or in the Hadith that says that your dua should entirely be composed of durood. In fact, if you look at your own prayer, we pray the durood and then of course we have other prayers or other supplications and duas right after the durood. So it's just a etiquette of praying to God that we start off praying first for our Prophet because he did a lot of he made a lot of sacrifices for us. So it's just befitting for us to pray for him. It's like an etiquette that we do, and then we pray for our own selves. So it's basically an etiquette and a mannerism that is taught to us. It's not that we have to just keep on reciting the durood. So durood itself is something that is a dua for the Prophet. And once that is done, you can pray for your own self.
ये गुलूफ में नहीं आ जाता ये भी इस तरह ये वाली बातें और वो उम्रा भी जो है अपनी मर्जी से करना ये भी सब
I would refrain from passing any verdict whether it's ghulu or not. I would say that it's more of a misunderstanding and a misconceived concept about religion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We are almost at time, but we have 3 more questions.
Can I add
to... Please go ahead.
Just I wanted to see, I don't have a question. I just wanted to add about Masjid Aisha, if you permit me. Otherwise, I'll just stay quiet.
Yes, please go ahead.
It actually originates from the Aisha radiallahu anha when she went for Hajj and she had menstruation to period, so she couldn't finish the Hajj. And what happened, the Prophet ﷺ sent her with her brother to Masjid Aisha, so she had to do the Ihram again and come back and finish her Hajj. But it is, of course, a place where people can go and put on the Ihram again. But you're absolutely right that Prophet ﷺ or the Sahaba would only do one Umrah during one trip. But the Masjid Aisha, the name came from there, so it is technically out of the boundaries of...
Yeah, that is also something because of a specific condition that was encountered by Aisha, and that is something which the Prophet told her. So I guess that is what has happened here, that our scholars, they think that if they have to do multiple Umrahs, then at least they should go out and wear ihram once again. But I can see there is a clear difference. One is that you wanted to do an Umrah, and because of a particular physical or a biological situation, you could not do it, and then you were allowed to go back again, wear the ihram, and then come back. So that's an entirely different case. And here it is a different case in which you have already done an umrah. I mean, you've done the due, and you would like to again go and do another umrah. I mean, in the first case, there was a genuine excuse, a legitimate ground, because she was not able to complete her umrah. In this case, you've already done your umrah. So I don't think there is an analogy that can be drawn.
You're right. Thank you.
Very much. If there is a will in place, how does the property get distributed? For example, if a spouse writes a share of property in a will to his wife, then how do we apply the ruling of division for the rest of the...
As I said, I mean, he can only make a will in favor of the wife if she has been of some extraordinary service, or if she would be in need when he passes away. So in that case, the will, whatever he would make, shall be given to her first, and then the distribution will be made according to the Quranic verses of inheritance.
Thank you very much. Can we read the Quran in English or Urdu, or is it mandatory to read it in Arabic?
It's ideal that read it in Arabic because it's revealed in Arabic and it has a very special impact. But in case you don't know Arabic, then the second best thing is to read it in your own language, and that would be a translation, of course.
Thank you very much. Bisma, Tirmizi Ahmed, please go ahead. Bisma, did you have a question? Okay, seems not.
I'm so sorry, Mariam. I know we're out of time. I don't want to infringe on Dr. Saleem's time, so I'll ask that question later. But thank you for calling me. That's why I lowered my hand, actually. I realized being a moderator...
It's okay. If you have a question, we can take one question.
Okay. So, Dr. Saleem, my question was, does it mean that, people do multiple umrahs for their grandparents and for their parents? So how does that play into it? And what is the wisdom behind just doing one umrah in one trip?
Because, I mean, it's an effort that you make to visit the house of God, and that is counted as sufficient. I mean, it's like visiting the house of God. And once you are there, you are there. I mean, it's like going to your grandmother's house, for example, to visit her, then going to the gate and then coming back to her, then going to the gate and then coming back to her. It's like, I mean, that is how the analogy comes to my mind. You're already there. You're already there. But you feel that I'm going to come here again. Let me go to the end of that lane of in which my grandma's house is. I'm going to go there and come back again. I mean, it's pointless because, I mean, the need was to visit the house of God, and that you have done. And that need would once again arise once you are away from the house of God, and you've outside the miqat, which means the place that you have to wear ihram, and then you feel like doing it again. So that is the proper way. Otherwise, I mean, you're already there. I mean, you're already in the house of God. I mean, it's like going out of the gate and coming back and then going out and...
Okay, so then why when people go and perform umrah for their relatives, how does that play into it?
I mean, then for that you have to ask those people, because it has no basis at all in religion.
It doesn't make sense then, right? Because somebody who's passed away can't visit a relative. So why would you be doing...
Correct. So that's something that has become a practice, unfortunately, and like many other practices, it has no basis.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. That was all the time that we had today for questions.